I want you to picture the scene at the Shajara Tayyaba Elementary School in southern Iran. A staff member who survived described running back into the building after the blast. She said that the first thing she saw was not rubble, but backpacks, piles of bloody, dusty backpacks, scattered where young girls had dropped them. At least 85 of those girls will never pick them up again. These are not claims from militia groups. These are reports from international news agencies and officials on the ground, confirmed by visual evidence showing destroyed schools and the personal belongings of the children. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. I am coming to you with this breaking news story that we have right now about the war in Iran. And this war is being started and escalated by the United States. And so I wanted to get into this with you guys because this is a huge deal. This is going to be a seriously devastating war, especially not just for the people within West Asia, but it is also going to be devastating for the people at home, especially our young people who may be in the military. Let's get into this. Let me share this story so you guys can see here. So U.S. and Israel attack on Iran. At least 85 girls killed in a strike on a school. Now, it says at least 85 people, almost all of them young girls, have been killed in an airstrike in a primary school in southern Iran. The attack on Sunday morning at the Shajara Tayyaba school in the city of Minab in the Hormozgan province in the United States and Israel began launching strikes on targets across Iran. The victims were between 7 and 12 years old, according to Iran's Activism and Fars news agencies. A staff member at the Minab school, who asked not to be named, told the Middle East Eye she remains in shock at the intensity of the attack. She said after today's strikes, she saw their bodies lying on classroom benches and in different corners of the school. So I want to emphasize how depraved what the United States and Israel is doing to Iran. A lot of people are talking about the facts on the ground, which is great. But I want people to realize and recognize the human impact this has. And yes, many of us, most of us in this country have said that we do not want a war with Iran. But imagine how Iranians feel from missiles flying from two countries, two nuclear powers, bombing your country, killing your children. Imagine how they feel. All because of the government that you are under supports liberation for a group of people who are surviving a genocide. Some who have survived the genocide, many martyrs, in the hundreds of thousands. A government that is defiant against U.S. hegemony, a government that is defiant against a block of nations that want to thumb their nose at your sovereignty and self-determination. Imagine how you would feel as they force their way into your country and into your government to run your life. And if they say some deplorable words about our nation, Let me ask you, if you were in their shoes, would you say the same thing? So I want to go over this particular speech by Donald Trump as he introduced this war. I want to give a shout out to Anti-War News. They actually did an article about this. This is from Kyle Anzalone. Says the U.S. Israel launch war on Iran. Israel says the goal is regime change in Tehran. And so before I read this, I want to get into the actual video of Donald Trump making the announcement so that we can go over it line by line. And also we will be doing a debunking of what some of the things that Donald Trump has stated in regards to the reasons why he wants to bomb Iran and why he wants to change the regime. And I'm going to show you guys in a little bit as to why we are doing a repeat of something that happened in the past. So let's get into it. Let's listen in.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries.
So first, let's stop there for the claim that he made that they basically hate us because they ain't us type of speech. That's basically what Donald Trump is saying, right? If we go back to what the United States has done historically, then this shows that really the reasons for the animosity towards the United States is not based on they hate us for our freedoms. Absolutely not. In fact, this is actually a lie, a story, old wives' tale that they tell in order to make themselves feel better, to console themselves into thinking that, oh, well, we should be committing mass atrocities across this nation because they just hate us. And in reality, historical context would serve us well in regards to this. I'm going to share this really quick just so you guys can see exactly why many people in Iran and many countries in the global south have very hostile feelings towards the United States. Let's start here first. And I will be bringing this back up a little bit later because, of course, Donald Trump lies through his teeth, but we shall get into that. So first, I want to set the stage here. How many bases does Iran have around the world? Not very many. If anything, their bases are secured within their own borders. But how many U.S. bases are around the world? Let's take a look here. Just shout out to the people here at Al Jazeera, even though you have to be very careful with them because Al Jazeera is also out of Qatar. But this says how many true. Let's go to the bases first. I want to share this. Where are U.S. military bases in the Middle East? It says the U.S. has operated military bases in the Middle East for decades. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, the U.S. operates a broad network of military sites, both permanent and temporary, across at least 19 locations in the region. Of these, 8 are permanent bases located in Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. And so let's take a look at the table here, or the map here. Let me shrink it just a little bit so everybody can see the full map. So you guys can see this full map here. I don't know if it'll allow me to expand it, but if you guys can see here, In the red, it says U.S. controlled base in operation for at least 15 years. And then in the orange, it says another site with U.S. military presence. And so, as you can see, in all these different countries, they have military bases. So we're talking about Iran. Now, Iran's a massive country. Just for context, Iran is gigantic, but look at all the ones that is within near it, right? You have Iran. You have one that has military U.S. presence in Oman, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain. Of course, you have one in Saudi Arabia. You have 5 in Kuwait, 5 U.S. controlled ones in Kuwait, right? Then Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and of course, technically, you can count Israel. The reason why is because Israel really is just a tool of the United States to keep power, its hegemon within West Asia. Of course, you have 2 in Turkey, and then in Djibouti, which is right near across from Yemen, that borders the Red Sea. And so, unfortunately, this is what Iran is surrounded by. Now, what this just reminds you of, this reminds you of what is the same situation with Russia. Russia is surrounded by U.S. military bases as well. And those U.S. military bases are pointed straight at it because they want the resources. And so let's keep this a buck, right? This is about resources. This is about what the Epstein class can take out of places like Iran. And so when it comes to what Iran is doing, they are backing up and having solidarity with people who are being exploited and they are being oppressed within their own land and being ethnically cleansed. So you have that. And then you have these countries, these Western countries that are coming in trying to dictate to them how they use their resources or have a puppet in their government that does their dirty work for them and making sure that the resources that are given to them are free or nearly free. And this has been happening for many, many years. And here's the issue. We will go back onto this, but it all started in 1953 when the United States and Britain committed a coup d'etat against the democratically elected leftist president Mohammad Mossadegh in Iran. And so we'll get over the details about that. But Iran has a long memory and they do not forget. And so they actually instituted a dictator in place in order to have somebody control Iran that they want instead of the people having someone that they want. So let's continue on with the remarks by Donald Trump in regards to this war with Iran that he has waged, and we shall get into it further.
Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole.
They knew or probably were involved. Either you know or you don't know. But let's continue on.
Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer.
What he means is that he's not going to put up with really the Iranians expressing their sovereignty and self-determination over their own land. That's what he means. And the crazy part is, what I want us to put ourselves in the Iranian shoes. If you had another country that was trying to do the exact same thing to you, that to take over your country and have placed a puppet head of state, ruler, dictator that served their interest, how would you feel? You kind of feel like how we feel about Israel right now, right? And so when you look at how he's saying, it's almost like every accusation is a confession with him, which is kind of interesting. But the issue involving what Trump is saying is that it's, how dare the Iranians take control of their own land, take control of their own resources, and tell us how they want to deal with their own stuff. That's weird, right? It's like you coming into my house, but yeah, you want to tell me how to operate things in my own house when you're not, I'm not in your house. House rules. And on top of it, if you truly believe in democracy, then you would put in, you would be one who pushes for continuation of democratic norms, but you don't. And in fact, you have a coup that is organized by the CIA and MI6 in order to institute a monarch, the Shah, instead, which means that you guys don't actually care about democracy. You guys care about power in your hands, no matter who's in it. And you placed in a brutal dictator in Iran. So much so that the Iranians had to have a revolution to overthrow the Shah that you installed. And because they overthrew it, now you're mad because you lost that power. That's exactly what it is. Let's keep it a beam. They're mad because they got. Because you shouldn't have been interfering in Iran's affairs in 1953. And so basically the United States caught that fade. That's what they did. And now they placed somebody in that they wanted. They had a religious revolution, which is more heavily Islamic, or in Islam, I should say. And so that's the way they had their revolution. But who are we to say how they conduct their country? If we don't want anybody telling us how we should conduct our country, then why in the world are we hypocritically doing that to Iranians? Why are we hypocritically doing that to Venezuelans? Why are we hypocritically doing that to Cubans? Why are we hypocritically doing that to Palestinians? Why are we doing this? Why is the French trying to do this to Burkinabe people or to Haitians? Because they got something that you want. And you want to take it by force. You don't want to cut deals. Because the people who run this country are greedy. And it's not the people, it is the Epstein class that run this country. And they know all about greed. Let's continue on.
From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was
So as far as this goes, number one, Palestinians have a right to defend themselves, especially according to international law, which the United States actually doesn't recognize, and Israel seems to not follow international law whatsoever. In fact, you have Benjamin Netanyahu that is wanted by the International Criminal Court, the ICC, and he is a fugitive that the United States refuses to conduct any type of justice in bringing him into the ICC to be tried and prosecuted for the war crimes that he has done. And so ultimately, you guys don't follow international law. You don't recognize international law. In fact, Donald Trump said that he does not recognize international law. It's like, what international law? It's like they don't care. Really, what they care about is the law of the jungle. It is the law of might makes right. And so it's the funny thing about laws is that once you start to enforce that law, it sooner or later gets enforced back on you. It's like a boomerang effect. And so because the United States doesn't want a multipolar world, they want to keep it a unipolar world. Unfortunately, the world is now waking up. They are getting themselves together. They're democratizing power. And the United States is going to see itself backed into a corner even further, to the point where now the United States has its claws out, its hair is raising on its back, and it's hissing at everybody. But those claws are dulled from all the scratching. Let's continue on.
Is brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore.
So let me stop here because the amount of lies that Trump is spewing, his pants basically should be on fire and should be revealing his diaper. But as far as the Iran deal, in fact, it was in 2018, I'm sorry. In 2018, the Iran deal was actually ripped up by Donald Trump. And that was actually the Iran deal was actually brokered by President Barack Obama back in 2015. And so this was a deal to make sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. But it's funny because a lot of people don't realize that Iran actually never wanted a nuclear weapon. By principle, they do not want one. They don't want one by principle. But if you listen to Benjamin Netanyahu, he's been saying Iran's been 2 weeks, a few days, 3 days, 5 days, tomorrow away from having a nuclear weapon. He's been saying that for over 30 years. He's like, oh, it's coming tomorrow. It's coming tomorrow. 30 years later. It still ain't here. It still ain't here. So, as far as the trying to get a particular nuclear weapon. They don't want it. In fact, this is from last year. It says the Iranian president says Tehran does not seek nuclear weapons. It says Iran does not intend to develop nuclear weapons, but will pursue its right to nuclear energy and research. So that's from President Masoud Pezeshkian on Mondays. And so he's reiterating the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's religious edict against weapons of mass destruction. So by principle, from their religious edict, they do not want a nuclear weapon. So it is part of their beliefs to not have a nuclear weapon. Let me ask you this. How many times has the United States bombed North Korea in the last 15, 20 years? Like actually like sent planes over to bomb North Korea. How many times? Now there's sanctions, yes. But as far as military actions against North Korea, how many have happened? Because they have a nuclear weapon. That's why they've never been attacked. The United States and Israel would not be attacking Iran right now if Iran had a nuclear weapon. If they actually had one, this war would not be happening, at least not a hot war. A cold war, yeah, but a hot war, no. That just tells you everything you need to know. They were never weeks away, days away, years away from developing a nuclear weapon. In fact, they didn't want one. You know what they wanted? They wanted electricity to power their homes, to operate their dishwashers, to operate their PS5s, to charge their cell phones, to use their laptops when it comes to doing makeup tutorials and games, or streaming, or audio listening to sermons from whatever religious leader that they subscribe to. Or they're doing research, or look, they just want to light the light in their home so that they can finish their math homework because they got an 85 on their last test and they're like, I need to study. That's it. It's innocuous. It is innocuous reasons that they want a nuclear power plant. And yet the United States keeps making excuses and saying, oh, well, they just want nuclear weapons. No, they don't. They've been saying that for years. They don't want one. And they haven't been pursuing one. And just because the process to develop a nuclear power plant ventures somewhat to what creates a nuclear weapon doesn't mean they're actually doing it. Because it's like saying, how can I put it? It's like saying, I have flour, but just because I have flour doesn't mean I'm trying to bake bread. Okay, yeah, I'm grinding the wheat to make flour, but is it to make bread? Well, no, I just need a roux for my sauce to thicken it. That's it. So the process of getting the flour is the same, but then once you have that flour, you're using it for a completely different purpose. He's not making bread; he's making it for a sauce, a roux to thicken the sauce. That's it. So that's my issue in regards to the way it's being spun in corporate media, right? So let's continue on because Trump is awkwardly long-winded, but there's a few things that we can pull from this. So let's go.
Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland.
We all know that's not true. I want to fast forward to this timestamp here. So let's go.
The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future. And it is a noble mission.
So he basically is saying the quiet part out loud here. He's basically saying that he's willing to risk the lives of our young people for, number one, a supremacist nation that really doesn't give a damn about us, and they just want to be able to continue to expand themselves, and they will commit genocide and a 21st century Holocaust to do it. Number two, this is actually a ploy really to expand the powers and expand their hegemony over a region that is resource rich, that will benefit big corporations, aka the Epstein class, that run our corporations, that own our government, so that they can be able to become richer. So that's exactly what this is about. Has nothing to do about safety of America. This has nothing to do about American interests in regards to the citizens. It's about American interests when it comes to big enterprise and the big shareholders and the CEOs and the owners of the central banks and the big banks, as well as the big corporations. That's what this ultimately is about. And the funny thing is, many people are saying we do not want a war with Iran. This includes many MAGA influencers. Trump has gotten himself in trouble with MAGA influencers. And so I'm going to share, let me see, let me share my screen here. So let me go here. Okay. So this is Glenn Greenwald sharing some thoughts from Charlie Kirk before he was murdered. And so let me enlarge this. It says, Glenn Greenwald shared, he says, Charlie Kirk in 2025 explaining why the massive U.S. war against Iran in an attempt to facilitate regime change as pushed by people like Lindsey Graham is pathologically insane. Let's just listen to just to a few minutes and then we shall move on. Okay, I just want to make sure. All right. So as you can see here, somebody like a Charlie Kirk essentially is saying, no, that is crazy. What in the world are we doing here? And this was before Charlie Kirk died, right? So I want to continue on and go here because a lot of people are now screaming off the, at the top of their lungs and saying, this is ridiculous. Charlie Kirk's friend, Candace Owens, has said this as well. She just responding to Dave Smith calling Donald Trump a traitor. Candace Owens says no one ever should sign up for U.S. military for the U.S. military outside of those who wish to join the IDF. Go home and defend your neighborhoods instead. Let the Mark Levins and Ben Shapiro send their offspring instead. We are an occupied nation. This is why Charlie was murdered. And I want to amend something. So first of all, I'm sick and tired of y'all because y'all got me agreeing with Candace Owens. Y'all got me agreeing with her. These are the end times. So here's the thing. And look, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? But here's my issue. Not my issue. I'm going to amend what she said because she said the children of Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro can go fight this fight. I also say, okay, have Barron Trump enlist into the military right now. Will Barron Trump enlist and defend Israel from Iranian aggression? Oh no, but Donald Trump would never send his son to do that. But yet, they want to send our young people. And this is one of the reasons why I want to, get Black people involved in this conversation, because what's going on over there, we say, yeah, that's not our issue, but it is our issue because guess who is in our high schools? Guess who's in our colleges? Those goon squad military recruiters are in our high schools recruiting our young people and saying, well, if you fight for us, you'll get housing, healthcare, and education. You'll get all these things. And guess what? They're in schools in the hood. In Orlando, you could be going to Evans, you could be going to Jones, you could be going to Oak Ridge, right? You could be going to the schools in the hood, man. And guess what? These are predominantly Black and brown schools and predominantly more economically disadvantaged areas. And then what do they do? They dangle in front of you all of the things that you need to have a dignified life. And they're like, hey, if you lay down your life for Israel, or if you lay down your life for these big corporations, we'll give you this. That is if you survive. That is if you still have your mental faculties intact and you're not being driven into madness from all the death and destruction you've been subject to. That is if you come out with all your limbs. That is if they honor their promise to you and you don't wind up homeless. And this is why I say for Black people, we need to pay attention to what they're doing abroad because they're trying to destroy our future for the sake of the Epstein Class. So if you have any young ones that are thinking about or trying to join the military, show them this video, show them other videos that are talking about war with Iran. And I'm going to tell you right now, young people, do you really want to die for a rich man's war that does not protect your family, does not protect your friends, does not protect liberty? It protects the awful monsters that are running our government. And yes, I know you need housing, you need healthcare, You want to get a good education. Yes, absolutely. But at what cost? They're dangling in front of you so that you take the bait. Baby, don't take the bait. There's also more, right? So, of course, we went to Candace Owens. But I also want to go to this person too. Speaking of Black people, Rob Smith even says that he doesn't want war with Iran. He said, I don't care what a foreign government wants. I don't care what DC warmongers want. I don't care what the mainstream media wants. I don't care what paid influencers want. The American people do not want war with Iran. No war with Iran. And he made himself abundantly clear too.
War with Iran would be such a complete and total catastrophic mistake, such a complete betrayal of everything that the MAGA movement was supposed to stand for and everything that Trump has been standing for since he came down that escalator about 11 years ago. I can't even believe that it is a serious conversation. So it is very clear right now that there are a couple of factions who want war with Iran, none of which are the American public. We have a foreign government that wants desperately to have a war with Iran, that has been pushing for war with Iran since 1995. So they obviously want war with Iran. We have a news media and a DC war industrial complex who both want war with Iran because war is big business for these people. And I don't think that a lot of people who are not into the kind of machinations of the swamp understands how all of this works. For the news media, war with Iran means automatic ratings, big bucks. You know, you've got their little correspondents who've never really done anything, who can't wait to throw a little flak jacket on that says press and to go play war reporter overseas. Oh, they live for this.
Wow. Wow. I am completely on the opposite side of the spectrum. But he's right. Look, I'm gonna be real with you. I can't. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? I can't find it. I can't see it. Look, it's like John Cena. Can't see me. It's nowhere to be found. And so, war is big business. War is big profit. Eisenhower warned us years ago. He said the military-industrial complex will take over this nation. And look at where we're at right now. Here I am, somebody as far left as I am, not liberal. No. I'm far left. But yet I agree, because the thing is like, look, we don't want this because it will destroy us all. It will destroy us physically, mentally, emotionally, economically. It will destroy us. The people that it will benefit is the Epstein class at the top. Trump is part of that class, by the way, but it'll benefit them. It's not going to benefit the rest of us. And this is why I always say both parties are trash. Both of them. Now, I will give credit to Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie, because they introduced a bill last summer that was a resolution, the War Powers Act resolution, that they wanted to bring to the floor for a roll call vote. But the leadership, Hakeem Jeffries, kicked the can down the road. And then they had a chance to vote on it again recently, towards the end of February. I'm sorry, mid-February. And because they had that chance, what did Hakeem Jeffries do again? Kick the can down the road again and said, oh, we'll do it next week. Because Hakeem Jeffries knew that war with Iran was going to happen. He wants war with Iran. He just wants that plausible deniability to go, oh, well, you know, I'm against what Trump is doing. This is absolutely wrong. But in reality, no. This gives him plausible deniability. So then he can allow it to happen, but then he can also get to tell people, hey, we got to fight against Trump. Donate to my Act Blue so you can keep me in office. They're disgusting. They are disgusting. And now you have Jasmine Crockett talking about, oh, well, we should have voted on this and this should have been up to Congress. And she's arguing for something procedural, something that she probably would have voted for anyway and said, oh, yeah, we should go to war with Iran. But because he didn't go the right direction, do the proper channels, oh, now she has a problem with it. When in reality, my question to Miss Crockett is, why don't you have that smoke for Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer? Why don't you have that smoke for them? Why didn't you team up with Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna to push, to force this act to be passed immediately so that this wouldn't happen? And so the fact that she supports Israel the way she does, and she does it for almost nearly free, well, that tells you everything you need to know. And now she's tweeting. She's like, oh, I'm so against this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, girl, really? You had a chance. You had a chance. Jasmine Crockett is not dumb. She is a brilliant woman, and that's what makes it even worse. She is brilliant. Which means she's also calculated. All these Democrats, just like all those Republicans, including the ones that said they're part of MAGA, the two people who I know from MAGA that are saying absolutely not, this should not be happening, are Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene. I cannot believe y'all got me agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene of all people. But she's right too. She's correct. We should not be spilling American blood for this supremacist state that wants to grow beyond its borders in order to really just be the largest unsinkable aircraft carrier that the U.S. owns in order to favor the Epstein class, to favor the parasitic class that extracts resources out of the ground so that they can have more and own the earth. That's what it's. They just want to own the earth. That includes you and me, by the way. And my ancestors fought too hard to combat chattel slavery for us to go back now. We ain't going back. The hell with that. The hell? And so when it comes to what Trump is trying to do now, he's trying to call for regime change. And regime change helps nobody except for the parasite class. Let's finish this up, and then I have something else I want to share with you guys.
We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
So here's my thing, right? This just basically streams what the United States has done in the past. And I'm gonna share with you guys what they did in the past because look, history may not repeat itself, but it damn sure rhymes. And so let me share this with you guys. What happened in August 19th in 1953. So in August 1953, it says the US and Britain toppled democratically elected government of Iran. So it says on August 19, 1953, Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh was removed from power in a coup organized and financed by the British and US governments. The Shah quickly returned to take power and signed over 40% of Iran's oil fields to US companies. This is the main reason why there was an overthrow. It had nothing to do with democracy. It had nothing to do with human rights. It had nothing to do with abuses of power. This was a business deal. That's exactly what this was. It was really just to steal and take their stuff. That's all it was about. And because they wanted to take and steal their stuff, they essentially took the Iranian people and put them under a brutal dictatorship so that they can get the oil. That's what it was. They put them under a monarchy. They stripped the Iranians of their democracy. The United States does not care about democracy. It is used as a cudgel. It's used as a tool to give excuse for extracting the resources and then undermining and taking sovereignty and self-determination away from the people. This is why this war with Iran started. This is why 85 little girls are dead in Iran right now, but there are no reported deaths in Israel. Even though Iran did strike Israel back, but Iran was very targeted in their strikes. If Iran really wanted civilian deaths to happen, they could have made it happen, but they didn't. Because ultimately, they don't want to harm anybody. They just don't want to see their people harmed, and they also don't want to see people like the Palestinians harmed, and they don't want to see them stripped of their land and ethnically cleansed. It's the same thing that's going on with in Lebanon with Hezbollah. They don't want to see people ethnically cleansed. Same thing with Ansar Allah in Yemen. They do not want to see people ethnically cleansed. They want people to be able to remain on their ancestral land and thrive. And so this is what it's about. But big corporations want to own everything because they're greedy, because they're monsters. Editing JB here, just coming in. As I was finishing the clip, it is now being reported by ABC News that the Ayatollah has been murdered by Israeli airstrikes. The Ayatollah, I don't want to butcher his name, Khamenei, is been murdered, but it is being relayed by Israeli officials. So until I hear any news from official Iranian sources, I'm saying this is alleged to be murdered in an Israeli or American airstrike. And so this could be pretty substantial. This is really their Ayatollah. This is the supreme religious leader within the country. And so this is what they've been aiming for. But they think that just because you take out the Ayatollah, that means that it's a huge blow. But I'm going to share this from Rania Khalek, journalist Rania Khalek. She says killing Khamenei Khamenei does not equal regime change. And so she cites a New York Times article from February 22nd. Says Ayatollah Khamenei has instructed Mr. Laranji and a handful of other close political and military associates to ensure that the Islamic Republic survives not only American and Israeli bombs, but also any assassination attempts on its top leadership, including on Ayatollah Khamenei himself, according to the 6 senior officials and the guards. According to 6 senior officials and the guards members, Ayatollah Khamenei has issued a series of directives. He has named 4 layers of succession for each of the military command and government roles that he personally appoints. He has also told everyone in leadership roles name up to 4 replacements and has delegated responsibilities to a tight circle of confidants to make decisions in case communication with him are disrupted or he is killed. When in hiding last June during the 12 days of war with Israel, Ayatollah Khamenei named 3 candidates who could succeed him. They have never been publicly identified, but Mr. Larijani is almost certainly not among them because he is not a senior Shiite cleric, a fundamental qualification for any successor. So just letting you guys know that this, as we speak, like even when I'm editing, that more news is coming out minute by minute. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. And if I can get more out to you as soon as humanly possible, when I gather more information, then I will be doing so in the next few days. Let's continue on. So it talks about the descriptive event. It says in 1953, the CIA and British intelligence orchestrated a coup d'etat that toppled the democratically elected government of Iran. The government of Mohammad Mossadegh. The aftershocks of the coup are still being felt. In 1951, Prime Minister Mossadegh roused Britain's ire when he nationalized the oil industry. Mossadegh argued that Iran should begin profiting from its vast oil reserves, which had been exclusively controlled by the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. The company later became known as British Petroleum, or BP. You see them stations, the green and yellow ones that you pass by, the gas stations. It says after considering military action, Britain opted for a coup d'etat. President Harry Truman rejected the idea, but when Dwight Eisenhower took over the White House, he ordered the CIA to embark on one of its first covert operations against a foreign government. The coup was led by an agent named Kermit Roosevelt, the grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt. The CIA leaned on young, insecure Shah to issue a decree dismissing Mossadegh as prime minister. Kermit Roosevelt had help from Norman Schwarzkopf's father, Norman Schwarzkopf. The CIA and the British helped to undermine Mossadegh's government through bribery, libel, and orchestrated riots. Agents posing as communists threatened religious leaders, while the U.S. ambassador lied to the prime minister about alleged attacks on American nationals. Some 300 people died in firefights in the streets of Tehran. Mossadegh was overthrown, sentenced 3 years in prison, followed by the house arrest for life. And this was because he wanted to nationalize the oil. That's why. All because of that. Says the crushing of Iran's first democratic government ushered in more than 2 decades of dictatorship under the Shah, who relied heavily on U.S. aid and arms. The anti-American backlash that toppled the Shah in 1979 shook the whole region and helped spread Islamic militancy. And so it talks about the full broadcast about it. And so this is what happened. And they want to repeat this. Let me remind you who also stated that they wanted this to be repeated just a couple weeks back. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, the second only to play both parts in our government besides Henry Kissinger. And here's what he had to say.
This is the path that President Trump and the United States has embarked upon. It is the path we ask you here in Europe to join us on. It is a path we have walked together before and hope to walk together again. For 5 centuries before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe. But in 1945, for the first time since the age of Columbus, it was contracting. Europe was in ruins. Half of it lived behind an iron curtain, and the rest looked like it would soon follow. The great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and sickle across vast swaths of the map in the years to come.
He said anti-colonial uprisings. This would include the Iranian Revolution. This was a result of the United States and Britain doing a coup d'etat, installing a Shah who was a brutal dictator. So, in doing so, anti-colonial groups overthrew the Shah and had a revolution. And this is what he's talking about. He's saying that this is a horrible thing that they did, when in reality, it was a dictator that the United States controlled. The United States is okay with dictators as long as they can control them. But to them, the worst person in the world is somebody that actually uses and obeys the principles of democracy and then does more for the people and less for the oligarchs and the big corporations. And so one of the things that they're saying on the ground in regards to Iran is that Iran's response has been extremely swift, much more swift than the United States actually anticipated in regards to coming after them. And so it is without saying that Iran has beat the expectations of the United States quite handedly. And this has been in the works for some time now. Of course, Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, is also coming out in defense of the United States' aggression towards Iran as well. As far as Yemen, they're saying that they're entering into the fight too. So this could be either a regional or maybe even turn into a world war. Who knows? But as of right now, it is becoming a regional war as we speak. Let me share this from the IRGC, from the General Ibrahim Jabari. And shout out to Hotspot for this one, because he basically said that the United States thinks that they have what they need, but we got way more. I'm not really going to play the video because I don't want to get in trouble with the tube, but he basically says Trump should know that today we fired the missiles from the back of our stockpile. Soon we will unveil weapons you have never seen before. So that was from the IRGC general that basically said, hey, we got it. You just don't know what we got. And so I think it's important for us to keep in mind, and this is why I caution anybody that may be trying to go sign up for military service within this country. You're riding on the boat to the river Styx. And this is something you may not be able to come back from. And so I implore people to stay away. We should not be spilling American blood for Israel power. We should not be spilling American blood for corporate power. We shouldn't be spilling American blood for anybody who is seeking to exploit and to oppress others. And this is exactly what is going on here. And so, will this be a long, protracted battle? I hope not. But I have a feeling that it will be longer than expected. And so, I am heartened to see that there's so many people coming out to go up against what the United States is doing. There are many protests that are happening here in Orlando. There will be a protest happening as we speak. And so I hope that you guys stay safe out there. If you are going to a protest, make sure that you are taking all the precautions in order to protect yourselves, just in case there's any type of escalation. And be very cautious. But yes, this is what's going on right now. And I hope that, there's no more reports of deaths in Iran. And look, to all the service members that are waking up right now to what is going on, if you can get out before you ship out, I recommend you do so. And by the way, Iran has a right to defend itself. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. One, forehead kisses.